In this lesson, we're going to begin the process of texturing the revolver. Alright, so really quickly, in between lessons I had created a diffuse mask, and this is going to help with the process of texturing our revolver. And it's very simple to do. What you need to do is go ahead and assign these different colors, and they can be as wacky as you like. We want to assign different colors to different materials for our texture. So for example, you can see that most of the gun itself is this red material. Then we have this blue material, which is showing up on these screws, okay, that are on the weapon. Then we have this green material, which is going to be the wood handles. And then we have this orange material, which is going to be kind of a worn looking metal. And it might even have some brass that kind of looks up underneath that. So like it's been used quite a bit. So I assign these colors to the high poly mesh. So you'll want to do the same thing. So just go to your material editor. I've created 4 different materials for this, and I assign those to the proper pieces. So once you assign those, remember you can use element mode to select different pieces of the weapon, okay, or the different elements of the weapon, and you can assign a material to that element. And then once you've assigned that, you'll want to bake out another map. So you should still have your projection map on. With that set, or projection modifier I should say, and with that set, we'll need to render out another texture. So you can do that by hitting 0, using the render to texture, and it's the exact same process that we've been doing, except the only thing that's different is we're baking out a diffuse map instead of a normal map or an ambient occlusion map. So you can see what the size is on that. And you can also see what the name is going to be. I named it revolver_M for mask. And then we're going to use that inside of Quixel Suite. So once you've rendered that for your own project, if you're following along that way, let's go ahead and close down 3ds Max and let's bring up Photoshop. Now inside of Photoshop, I've also activated Quixel Suite. So I've just opened that up. As of the recording of this video, you can get it as a beta, and so you can download it and you can try it. There's no guarantee that it's always going to be there, but it's there now. It's also very inexpensive, and it's a really great tool, well worth the money for that. So to get started, we want to create our diffuse map, and so we're going to be using Dedo. So left click on Dedo, and this is going to bring up your base creator dialog. Now what we'll want to do is go ahead and bring in a mesh, and the mesh I'm going to bring in is just a low poly mesh that I exported out from 3ds Max. Okay, so of your low poly revolver, look at it, it's an OBJ file. This is not the game mesh that we're going to use as a final. This is just to help me preview it inside of Dedo. One thing to note about this, if you export out your game mesh, it can be multiple objects, but it needs to be an OBJ and it needs to be triangulated. So make sure that you change the setting under your export settings for OBJ. For faces, set that to triangles instead of quads. Go ahead and open that, and then we'll go to ID Maps. We'll go ahead and go back to our Scene Assets folder and Images, and there's our revolver mask. Go ahead and open that. Then we're going to go to our normal map, and we're going to use revolver_normal map. AO, same thing. And then we're going to scroll down, and I've gone ahead and I've added in a curvature map, okay? And that was basically just using Endo to give me that curvature map, okay? And so I just converted the normal map that we had already generated into a curvature map. Very easy to do. And then that's all we need for that. Now, beyond that, I want to make sure that our calibration profile is set to UE4 because I'm going to be putting it into a game engine, so why not use the UE4 calibration profile? Now, you could use PBR or you can choose whatever you like here, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with that. So, also under your options, set your textile density to 2048 because that's the texture size that we're using right now. You'll also want to make sure that your flip normal Y is turned on, okay, because we had exported out our normal map from 3ds Max, and so we need to make sure that that Y is flipped. Also, because we're using the UE4, we're going to have this metalness turned on as well. Now you'll also notice your path. Whenever we create our base, it's going to create a folder inside of this path, and it's going to create it where this map was created. Now before we do anything else, let's click on this links button here, and that's going to bring up the ID link editor, and we need to tell it what these colors are. Okay, so first one, it's setting it up to gold. We don't want that. I'm going to actually set this up to metal, and let's actually hover over metal, and then we'll go to something like Parkerized steel, and then I'm going to go to the green here, and that's going to be wood, and we'll do varnished wood or bare wood, whatever you want to do. And then on the orange, we're going to click on that. We're going to go to metal, and I'm just going to do steel. And then on the blue, this is going to be brass. So we'll go to metal and then brass. Now with that set, all we have to do now is go ahead and click on done, and that will set our links properly. And then whenever we create this base, you'll see that we have these different layers, and you'll actually see a little bit of a preview of our weapon. Now we'll have to open up 3Do in order to see that, but let's wait for Quixel to finish up creating its materials. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it and then wait for that to finish. Alright, so once that is finished, you should see under your albedo, you'll have 3 different materials. We have a brass material, parkerized metal, and steel. Now we should see a 4th one, and we should see wood, but because we used the varnish wood, it doesn't have anything to use in that case. It didn't have a material for it, and so it left it blank. That's okay. We'll create our own wood material for it in the next couple of lessons. So let's preview what we have right now. Let's go ahead and click on 3Do, and that's going to bring up the preview window. Give that just a moment, and there we go. So there we have our gun. Notice that the wood is not showing up, so it's just giving us this flat gray color. Go ahead and click on or press the space bar to bring up your UI, and I want to apply mesh rotation. Take this Y value down to 0, so that way whenever we orbit around the gun, we're orbiting in this fashion. Okay, so that makes it a little bit easier. You can also adjust how the reflections are being used here, and so you can use whichever one you like. I like this one right here in the middle, but you can go to this one as well. Choose any one that you like, so I switch between those two. Alright, so with that, we have everything else that we need. We don't really need to change anything else in here. We're going to go ahead and leave it just the way it is. So hit the space bar, and that's going to reduce that. And then you can zoom in by holding down the right mouse button and zoom and dragging. You can hold the middle mouse button to pan and then the left mouse button to orbit. That's the basic controls inside of D-Do, or 3Do, excuse me. Alright, so now that we have that set, what we want to do in our next lesson is we're going to go ahead and start setting up the final look to our texture. So we're going to take a look at our metal, we're going to apply a smart material to it, and then we'll also create our wood material probably in the following lesson after that. So let's go ahead and get started in our next lesson with really detailing out our textures.